Many men face the same difficulty when communicating with a woman they like, no matter where it happens. Maybe you like a colleague at work, or you met someone and are texting, hoping to turn it into a date, or maybe you even managed to go on a date. But somehow, one way or another, the communication fizzles out. You keep talking to your colleague, but somehow you just can't manage to arrange a date. It's the same thing with texting. You keep messaging, but after a while the woman starts responding more and more blandly, more and more coldly. Or maybe you even manage to go on a date with a woman, but after 1 or 2 dates, things just don't seem to be going anywhere. And in the end, she loses interest. I know, it's frustrating. You start thinking, what the hell, why are they acting like they're some kind of princesses? And it's like they don't want to go out, even though I'm talking to them and trying to connect. Look, the whole point is how attraction works for women. Today I want to tell you about a number of topics that will help you get close to a woman as quickly as possible so that she becomes interested in you as a man and that interest keeps growing. Let's go, let's figure this out. So first of all, let's think strategically. In order for a woman to want us and fall in love with us, we need to lead her through 3 stages. The first stage is to build trust and an emotional connection with her. This is something that many men have a really hard time understanding, because how does it work for us? We see that a woman is beautiful, we feel attracted, we want her, and we're already making plans for how to go on a date with her. For women, it doesn't work like that. There isn't even a saying for women that's similar to the male ones, like fell in love with beautiful legs, fell in love with broad shoulders, or fell in love with a beautiful smile. There just isn't a common saying like that, because for women, our appearance isn't as important as their appearance is to us. I've seen tons of comments from men saying, oh no, it is important to be good looking. But that's not what we're talking about right now. If anything, I can make a video or write a post on my Telegram channel explaining why that's a mistaken belief. But that's not the topic right now. First, you need to build trust and an emotional connection. If a woman feels that she can relax around you, that you pose absolutely no threat to her, then it will be much easier for her to agree to meet up with you. This is especially important if you met her on a website or somewhere online and she still doesn't know what to expect from you. But trust, showing that you're a reasonable, normal guy, a man, that's the first point. It's also important for you to show that to build an emotional connection with her. In other words, make her feel that when she's with you, there's a sense of warmth, a sense of connection, Like, as some girls have told me, wow, it feels like you understand me in a way that other men just don't. It's very important to create this feeling, because as soon as a woman feels it, she'll want to meet up with you, she'll feel drawn to you. So, trust and emotional connection. Next, I'll tell you how to create that. The next thing you need to do is more about communicating on the date, although you can actually do it even before the date. Basically, you need to create an attractive image of yourself in her eyes. And this is where a lot of men really mess up. They show off, do things too blatantly, make it obvious they're trying to impress the woman, and that just doesn't work. When a woman realizes you're trying to impress her, it actually works against you. Just think about it yourself. If you saw some guy or girl trying to impress you, how would you react? Would you like it, or would you wonder why they're doing it? Why the hell are they trying to act like they're someone they're not? Of course you wouldn't like it. That's why you definitely need to create an attractive image of yourself as a man, but you have to do it subtly. We'll talk about that now too. And the third thing you need to do is arouse the woman. This is probably the main stumbling block for men, because they talk to women like they're their sisters. As a result, there's no sexuality in the conversation, and she doesn't get aroused. Again, you get aroused, she's beautiful, you see it and you want her, but for her it doesn't work that way. Yeah, she doesn't get aroused just because you have broad shoulders. Women love with their ears. Let's figure out how to put these 3 stages into practice. What topics to bring up, how to touch on them, how to communicate. So, how do you implement the first stage, namely building trust and an emotional connection with a woman? For this, you need to remember one key rule. Facts don't evoke emotions. So what does evoke emotions? A description, which you can get by asking follow-up questions. Let me show you with an example. Let's say you ask a woman, like, what do you do for a living? You want to find out, right? And she tells you she's a manager, so you've just learned a fact. How can you make this conversation more emotional? For example, you could ask her this question. Oh, a manager, wow, I can totally picture you in a blouse, a skirt, and with your hair in a ponytail. At your workplace. By the way, how did you choose this job? Did you decide on your own? Or did your parents once encourage you to start studying to become a manager? So here you start to probe a bit, right? If she chose it herself, you can say, ah, cool, a conscious choice, not something you see very often these days. Why did you choose this particular job? In this way, you start to dive deeper into understanding her values. Why this job? What she likes about it. And when you ask these clarifying questions, she starts to talk about what's important to her. This brings out emotions in her. And as a result, she gradually becomes filled with these emotions while being around you. The more emotions she experiences with you, mostly positive ones, the faster she'll start to associate you with those feelings. That's what emotional connection is. But if it turns out that she didn't choose this job herself and it actually weighs her down, just switch to another topic. That means there are no positive emotions here for her to experience, especially if you keep asking more clarifying questions. And by the way, keep this in mind. This is an important point. You shouldn't linger too long on one topic. Touch on several topics with a girl or woman and build an emotional connection with her in at least 3 or 4 different areas. Now I'll tell you which topics make it easiest and fastest to build an emotional connection. The first topic is to discuss hobbies and dreams. For example, you can ask a woman what she likes to do in her free time. She'll tell you something. For example, she might say, I like dancing. And then you comment on it saying something like, wow, that's cool. Actually, I can tell from your figure now it makes sense that you dance. How did you get into that? So what are you doing here? You make a comment and then ask a clarifying question. In this case, it won't feel like an interrogation at all. It will be a natural conversation that draws you both deeper and deeper into topics and questions that evoke emotions in her. So in this example, you're asking her how she got into it. She might tell you, for instance, that she saw something when she was a child. She saw a couple dancing, saw how graceful it looked, she really liked it, and she started dreaming that one day she would dance like that herself. And what happens at that moment when she tells you this? She relives those emotions. When she first saw that couple, when she first went to dance classes, she experiences those pleasant emotions again, right next to you. So here's what you need to do. Okay, look, the second topic where you can very easily and quickly create an emotional connection with a woman is when you discuss with her what excites you, what excites her and what excites you. For example, you can ask her, tell me, what makes you feel truly inspired and happy? Is there anything like that? What do? You encourage her to dive into her memories, and from her subconscious comes out what inspires her, what gives her a sense of happiness. And she tells you about it, sharing her thoughts with you. And besides that, you also need to smoothly transition to the second point. This is to create an attractive image of yourself in her eyes, making a positive impression. In other words, you can do this in parallel, working on both aspects at the same time. So you ask questions, immersing her in pleasant emotions because she remembers something. And at the same time, you can talk about yourself on this topic in order to attract the woman. Accordingly, then you can tell her about yourself, about some of your own experiences, about something that makes you happy. And again, look, you can simply tell her, I like to travel. For example, if you just state the fact, that's one thing, but you should convey it in a way that shares emotions, that really paints a vivid picture. You could say something like, I really enjoy it. I arrive in a new country, find the highest point in the city I'm in, and look around. I can truly feel the scents, the colors, the trees, maybe even palm trees if it's a more southern country. And I get overwhelmed by such an incredible feeling that I just totally enjoy it. It's the best moment of my life that I've ever experienced. When I look at a new city from almost a bird's eye view. Even as I'm telling you this right now, I honestly have goosebumps. And if you talk to a woman like this, in this way, sharing some of your own moments that you'll never forget, the ones that are the most emotional for you, she'll get goosebumps too. She'll also imagine herself standing on that beautiful cliff, for example, seeing the city and its lights spread out beneath her. It really gives you goosebumps. And what happens next? Next, she experiences emotions that bring you closer together very quickly. Emotionally, you become very close in just 20 to 30 minutes of this kind of conversation. It's precisely because of this communication strategy that I've heard women say, I feel like I've known you for 100 years. I've never felt this way with other men before. And when a woman feels this, she feels like it's some kind of magic. And she really wants... This is exactly the spark she wants to experience. But for that, you need to refine everything further with flirting and sexuality. I'll help you figure out how to do that too. But for now, let's continue with the topics. And by the way, look, I just showed you a technique for how you can share a fact in a way that it's not just a fact, like, I love to travel, but an actual picture that evokes emotions. If you want to learn how to do the same, I invite you to my Telegram channel. Right now you can see a post here, an example of a post, where I explain how you can package facts into very appealing, emotional and touching descriptions that will stir up a lot of emotions in a woman. So go to my Telegram channel while you're watching this video, or right now. Read this post and then be sure to read all the other posts, because that's how you'll level up as quickly as possible through all the stages you need to take a woman from meeting to sex and a relationship. Let's move on. The next topic is about unexpected twists, some kind of adventures. For example, look, you don't even have to always start with a question. You can just tell something yourself. This is something you'll learn as you go, how to smoothly transition from one topic to another during a conversation. For instance, you touched on the topic of work, like what happened with me. A woman asked me in my childhood, what do you do for work? I was already working as a psychologist. I said, I'm working as a psychologist now, but it wasn't always like that. I actually used to work at a university. And I taught there, but at some point I realized that it didn't excite me at all, and it really wasn't the field I wanted to be in. At that time I was in graduate school studying economics, and my parents were really pushing for it, saying like, go for it, this way you'll have money, you'll be able to work properly and so on. But I've always been drawn to psychology, and at some point I thought, to hell with wasting my life on something that doesn't excite me at all. So I went to get a second degree in psychology, and now that's my profession. So look, again, if you use different moments like this, for example, we started with the topic of work, but I answered in a way that also shows another attractive quality about me, right? That I don't just blindly follow authority when it comes to myself, my decisions, and my life. I know what I want, and I go after what I want, no matter what my relatives or anyone else thinks about it. In the same way, you can convey different qualities, for example, that you care about your loved ones. By the way, for many men, this will be a revelation. You don't need to take care of a woman. I mean, things like courting, gifts, flowers. Sorry, I just can't hold it in anymore because so many men just don't get it. All kinds of help and favors. You don't need to do that. It's better to show a woman in conversation that you tend to care for your loved ones. Show her in your conversation. Tell her, for example, how you helped your mom with something when she needed help. Or your sister, or your child if you have one now. Or maybe a friend. What are you doing by doing this? You're showing that you're a compassionate person. And you make her feel like, wow, that's awesome, he's caring, that's so great. There aren't that many people who know how to empathize and put themselves in someone else's shoes. You told her this, smoothly weaving it into some story. And you made her want to think, wow, I wish a man like that was with me. You see? It's like a demo mode. You told her, you smoothly showed through a story what kind of person you can be. And you made her want to have a man like that in her life. You see? But if you immediately start focusing on giving gifts, courting her, bringing flowers, then you won't get anything at all. Because instead of leading a woman through these stages of communication, you just start focusing on courting her. And that always ends badly. So, for example, I told her how I switched from one job to a completely different field, learned everything there, started practicing, and so on. And I could have finished with a question like this. Have you ever had situations where you made a completely different decision, like everything was going one way, but you chose another path and in the end it turned out great? And you encouraged the woman to recall situations where she was heading in one direction, then changed course and ultimately enjoyed the result. Someone will tell you about a situation and once again experience great emotions, because she'll relive that moment, how she turned away from the wrong path, chose another, and it will feel good and pleasant. Someone might say to you, but no, nothing like that comes to mind. And then you can even say something like, listen, maybe that's actually a good thing. Maybe you're just following the path you truly want to take from the very beginning. And right away again, a woman might say to you, as they usually do, that no, not exactly. And here you can gently and encouragingly support her. To start, you can ask, tell me, what do you feel is not quite right in your life? Not exactly what you wanted. You see, and this is how you gently, smoothly start to go into this. Yes, to find out, to support, to ask questions to help her experience it, as if she has already achieved it. Yes, to support her in this with words, with understanding. Do you understand? And this is much more valuable than just courting. This is exactly how you'll give a woman those goosebumps, This is how you'll make her feel like, wow, I've never talked to a man like this before. I've never had such an understanding man. The way I feel with him now, I've never felt with any other man. because so few people communicate like this. It's like, when you meet up with a friend somewhere by the sea or with someone close and you're sitting there playing heartfelt songs and you feel this closeness, this attraction. It's amazing. The same thing happens on a date when you just have a heart-to-heart conversation with a woman and dive into deep moments. Not the superficial stuff like what you do for work or what your hobbies are, but into something much deeper. The next topic, which is full of charged, intense emotions, is childhood. For example, here's how I did it. At some point, I might catch a woman's gaze during a date. I'd catch her gaze and say, hey, flashback, you're looking at me right now the way my classmate used to look at me back in childhood. And it was really like a flashback. By the way, she was a really great girl, but unfortunately, no, she's alive, but unfortunately, after 9th grade, her parents moved to another city and she left with them. And we can talk about it a little. She'll ask who the girl was. I can say, yes, I liked her. We had a mutual crush. But in the end, obviously, first of all, we were kids. Then she moved away. And then my wife also starts to remember her own childhood, how she liked someone, those tender moments, And you can even just ask her, like, what's the most emotional moment from your childhood that you remember? Then she'll tell you something. She'll relive that emotion. You ask her follow-up questions. I hope it's clear now how to create an emotional connection. If you do this with women on dates, man, you'll become an exceptional man to them because they don't have this kind of communication with other men. But look, for a woman to want you as a man and fall in love, besides creating an emotional connection and building an attractive image of yourself, it's important that you also arouse her. At this point, she'll be ready for you to start introducing a sexual context. Because she trusts you, she gets goosebumps from the way you interact with her, she sees you in an attractive light. And you need to use this moment to get closer to her sexually. If you just stop and think, wow, we had such a deep and amazing conversation, damn, I don't want to ruin this moment by getting closer, you'll ruin everything, because right now she's warmed up. It's like you put a kettle on the stove. You heated the water to 100 degrees but didn't brew the tea. Damn, you missed the most important part. Now you need to actually dip the tea bag. But in order to do that, you need to start touching on the sexual context. Smoothly, gently, carefully. Look, first of all, how do you learn to do this? Please go to my Telegram channel. Just a reminder, the link is in the description in the first pinned comment. Read the post with the hashtag flirt. Start with the post you'll find in the pinned message. Read it, study it, and apply this strategy for getting closer to a woman on a sexual level. And besides that, watch this video because here I also explain in detail and step by step exactly how to get closer to a woman sexually. Go to this video. See you. Until next time.